Are you confused about what to eat? You don't know if you should do carnivore or be a vegan or a vegetarian or eat paleo or do the Whole30 diet. There's so many diets that are being blasted at us and it can be really confusing. I was super confused at one point and I just decided to jump in and study nutrition to actually understand what a healthy diet was. And that's what we're going to do today. We are going to cut through the noise, cut through the chatter, and unpack what it actually means to eat a healthy diet. What does that look like? So that you can stop second guessing what you're shopping for, what you're eating, and you can actually truly start nourishing your body with a healthy, supportive diet to help your body function optimally. You are listening to the Gut Health Jack podcast, where we question the common narrative and explore what lies beneath the surface. I'm Jacqui, functional nutritionist, clinical herbalist, and NLP practitioner, here to help you understand your body, uncover the root causes of your symptoms, and finally feel like yourself again. If you've ever felt like you don't fit into the conventional path, if you're tired of the quick fixes and crave a more honest, holistic approach, you are in the right place. Every other week, we dive into the often overlooked layers of healing and explore practical steps to rebuild your gut from the inside out, all while reconnecting with your intuition. Let's dig in. Hello, it's Jacqui here. We are unpacking what a healthy diet is today and what we need to know when we're going and buying stuff at the store. What do we look for? What is it that we need to be eating? And this is super important for anything that we're doing every single day, right? So no matter if you're drinking or smoking or gardening or running or whatever, anything that's consistently happening every single day, we want to check it out. We want to see what's going on there. And with food, we're eating every single day, 3 times a day. And so we want to see what the quality is. We want to see what's coming into the mouth. So this is super important, right? And multiple major studies have shown that poor diet is now the leading cause of chronic disease globally, right? We're talking heart disease, diabetes, we're talking stroke, even certain cancers. And this is all tied to what you are eating on a daily, regular basis. All right, so it's important to kind of take a step back, and I'll always do this. We always got to figure out where we are or what's going on. And the thing is, humans have evolved to survive in a very specific environment over tens of thousands of generations. And our current environment, our modern world, is changing faster than our bodies and our genetics can adapt. You know, our food systems, our stress levels, our toxins, everything is just on hyper speed, and our body and our health is having a hard time keeping up. So if we look to what our ancestors ate, it was diverse, nutrient dense, it was packed full of nutrients and fiber, color, it was seasonal, right? It was a combination of animal and plant foods. We soaked and sprouted our foods. And if you compare that to our modern day diet, we have drifted so far away from that. And now it's low in nutrients, it's inflammatory, it's highly processed. And our genes didn't evolve and haven't evolved, maybe we will one day, to eat highly processed foods, refined flours, right? Inflammatory vegetable oils, chips, sugary drinks, pizzas. All this stuff is not food. We call it food, but it's not, right? If you look at pizza, it's like, wow, where did this come from? If you look at crackers and goldfish, does that actually seem like it came from the earth? We have come so far from what our genetics have been adapted to stay healthy. So we are going to unpack that today, and we're going to talk about how to navigate this problem, right? We are in a world where we need to be eating a healthy, nutrient-dense diet, but the options aren't always available. So we have to put our thinking cap and detective cap on when we go to the grocery store to flip around the package and to see what's actually in this thing that I'm buying. So by the end of this episode, you are going to actually understand what a nutrient-dense, healthy diet is. We're going to talk about what a nutrient is. What are macronutrients? What are micronutrients? Right? How much fat, carbohydrates, protein, water, vitamin, minerals. We're going to unpack the specifics of what your body actually needs to function. Just at a very basic level, we're going to drop into nutrition 101 so you can drop the confusion and get really clear about what to feed yourself. So anytime I am learning a new concept or teaching a new framework or whatever, I like to start with the awareness piece, right? We just become aware of what's actually happening. So we're going to dive into what our body actually is in a second. And then we educate ourselves, we learn, we take that understanding to a deeper level to help us create new habits and deeper conversations. And then we put it into action, right? What small changes can I do to support my system and my health and my body? So if we are talking about the body, right, there are different levels of the body, right? We've got the physical body, which is what we're talking about today. We've got the emotional body, we've got the energetic body, and we've got the mental body. So when we're talking about the physical body, we can look at the levels of organization. That's basically, we want to be as healthy as our cells. And basically, right, we've got atoms, and then we've got molecules, and then we have cells, and then we have tissues, and we've got organs, and then we have organ systems and organism, right? So we're just going to go all the way back to see how we can support our smallest unit in our body, which is our cells. And cells are the basic structural and functional units of living organisms. And they vary in size and shape and function. We have muscle cells, and we have nerve cells, and we have skin cells. We've got all different cells. We've got liver cells, and those make up our tissues, which make up our organs, and then that makes up our organ systems, like our digestive system. And that makes all these different systems then make up us as this human being, right? A complete individual living thing, the entirety of the human body, which consists of all the organ systems working together to maintain life and perform certain activities and functions. So what we want to do today is we want to understand how to support a cell, right? We are only as healthy as our cells. So what is the health of a cell, and what do our cells need for their structure and our function? Everything that is a living organism, it has structure, right? Like literally I'm standing here talking to you on this podcast. I need something to hold me up, and I also need the function to have the words coming out of my mouth, my hands moving, everything like that. So what do we need? We need nutrients, right? Nutrition, nutrient-dense diet, nutrients. And what are the essential nutrients for this organism, for the cells? How do we support the cellular health? And that is through macronutrients and micronutrients. So macronutrients are nutrients that we use in larger amounts, and those are fat, carbohydrates, and protein. I like to add in water and fiber to those because I think they're equally as important, and we need to have them in high doses. And then we have micronutrients. We've got vitamins and minerals, right? So we've got these two categories, macro and micro. And what we'll first talk into is macronutrients. And this is the one that people always get tripped up on. How much fat, how much protein, how much carbohydrates. So those are the big three, right, that we are going to unpack when we're talking specifically about diet. And fiber comes in there too, sort of in the carbohydrate section. But let's talk into fats first, because fats are literally, they create the structure of our cells. And now you know that we are only as healthy as our cells. So someone who has a fatty acid imbalance or deficiency, this can show up as inflammation or joint pain, musculoskeletal issues, or floating stools. That's a big one. If your stools are floating in your toilet and you're like, whoa, hello, it's popping up, that can be, you're not digesting your fatty acids. Nausea, right? Hormonal issues, cardiovascular issues, immune concerns, allergies, itchy, dry skin, depression, mood issues. There's all sorts of things that can show up if we have an imbalance in our fats in our diet. So a diversity of fatty acids is required for optimal health because it absorbs certain vitamins like vitamins A, D, E, and K. It increases our satiety, so it makes us feel full. It gives us that long-lasting, sustained energy. It is literally the structure of our cell walls and our hormones. It supports our other organs with a protective lining, and also it really flavors our food. So if people are like, oh, vegetables, they're gross, you always got to wonder, are you adding enough fat? So when we're talking about the structure of our cells, the cell membranes, the outside of the cell, this is called the phospholipid bilayer, which is made of a variety of different fats. And this allows nutrients in and waste out of the cell, right? And the thing is, cells can lose their integrity if we've got poor fat digestion, poor fatty acid balance, deficiency of certain fats, poor quality fats. So this all it matters about quality, quantity, and how well we're absorbing them. And the thing is, when we lose the integrity of our cell membrane, we then lose the ability to transport materials across the cell membranes. And this is really, really freaking key point is if we lose this ability to transport stuff in and out of the cell, we lose function of the body. So let's talk into what is healthy and what is unhealthy when we're talking about fats. So it's really important to look at how fats are made, right? Was it a simple extraction method? Was it an industrial extraction method with chemical solvents and certain equipment that heats it up really hot? What is the source? So the quality, right? Is it GMO? Is it genetically modified? Is it organic? Is it conventional? Is it highly processed? Is it rancid? Is there funky taste? What's the origin, right? And how and where is it stored? Is it in glass? Is it in a clear bottle? Is it in a dark bottle, right? How far away is this food product? How far away is it from its natural state? The end product that we are consuming, how far away is this from when it was on a plant? And if you're already tripping out like, oh my God, what is she talking about? I have a 30-day program coming up where I'm going to help you walk through this whole process of resetting your diet, resetting your gut, called Mind Gut Reset. And if you want to jump on the wait list, there's going to be a small group. This is my first time I'm doing this, so don't worry, I'm here to walk you through it. Just join the wait list and I'm going to hold your hand through the whole process. So back to the quality of our oils. So the life of a processed seed oil. So we've got really natural oils like, cold pressed, raw, organic, let's say olive oil or coconut oil. It's basically just smushed and pressed and the oil comes out of the plant. The thing is, when we have these processed seed oils, they come from genetically modified crops, right? Which our immune system does not recognize these proteins and can mount an immune response and an immune attack because they're not normal, right? This is this evolutionary mismatch. If they're genetically modified, our body is like, hey, what the hell is that thing? It is not normal. It's a foreigner. If these seeds are grown in depleted soils, that's a thing, sprayed with chemicals, right? And the thing is the way that they're processed. So we're talking about soy, corn, peanut, any vegetable oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. The processing steps that it takes is so gnarly. They can be contaminated with heavy metals. They can be soaked in chemical agents. They're exposed to high heat and light, and they're bleached to deodorize the smell. These are literally, they can be smell so bad that they bleach them to deodorize the smell so that they are palatable. And then they sit on the shelves in plastic bottles for a long, long time, up to years. And then they go to your cupboard or they sit next to the stove where it's hot and in the sun. And the thing is, these oils are polyunsaturated fatty acids, PUFAs, which are already sensitive to heat and light in the first place. So you can imagine this genetically grown crop is grown in a depleted soil, sprayed with chemicals. It goes through this whole crazy processing where it's exposed to light, heat, and chemicals. And then it sits on the shelf in a plastic bottle, and then it sits in the cupboard next to the stove or above the stove. And by the time that you consume these oils or you get them at a restaurant, they are unhealthy and not fit for human consumption. And the thing is, this modern processing, it creates rancid, oxidized oil, which this generates free radicals in the body. And free radicals are the driver of inflammation and contribute to chronic disease, which also accelerates aging and damages our cells and our tissues of the body. And another thing is they are high in omega-6s. So they've just got like this compounding effect of negative, basically like negative ingredients. So if they're high in omega-6s, this is our inflammatory fatty acid, and not that inflammation is bad at all, but if we're only opening the doorway to inflammation, what happens to the anti-inflammatory omega-3s? They actually share the same pathway. So if we bombard the system with omega-3s, it's not going to allow if we bombard the pathway with omega-6s, we're not going to be able to allow the omega-3s to shine and do their anti-inflammatory action. So we can be overdoing this omega-6s because they are in packaged foods, right? There's often packaged foods are full of these inflammatory oils. We've got restaurant foods. They're not using high quality oils. Often we'll see sauces, dips, hummus, alternative milks, chips, crackers, commercial animal products because they're feeding their animals with this grain that is high in omega-6s. And we've got things like vegan butters, margarine, certain sprays like vegan sprays. All these things are high in omega-6, and they're also high in these rancid oxidized oils, which again drives up free radicals, drives up inflammation, and leads to chronic disease. Okay, so I don't want to make you think that omega-6s are bad. It's just the amount and the quality of them are being consumed at a very high rate. So inflammation can, yes, be driven by a poor diet that is rich in omega-6 fatty acids, especially if we're doing lots of seed oils, lots of grains, lots of nuts. And the thing is, humans do need inflammation, right? For infection, for injury. It's really important to have inflammation when we need to repair and we need to have our immune system mount a response. And omega-6, they are essential fatty acids, right? We just need to balance them with omega-3s, and we need them to not be denatured omega-6s. We need to have them in their whole food form, which is like whole food nuts and certain grains. And we just want to make sure that they are kept in the fridge and taken well care of because they are sensitive. Omega-6s are sensitive to heat and light. And it's good to look at the ideal omega-6 to 3 ratio. It's approximately, 2 to 1 or 4 to 1, a little bit more omega-6s to 3s. And this is much closer to what we as humans evolved with. It used to be almost like 1 to 1. And now we are trending to like 10 or 20 to 1, which means that we have way too many omega-6s in the Western diet. And this is primarily from seed oils, processed foods, and not enough omega-3s, which are the anti-inflammatories. So the goal isn't to eliminate the omega-6s completely because they are essential fatty acids. But the goal is to bring back the balance between the omega-3 and omega-6s. And we can do this by reducing these processed oils and increasing our intake of omega-3 rich foods like wild fish, flax seeds, walnuts, hemp seeds, wild game like elk and deer, or seafood, right? Cold water fish, egg yolks, grass-fed animals like beef and tallow. And it's important to note that it can be kind of tricky for the body to convert plant sources of omega-3s into the usable form of EPA and DHA, which are the biologically active forms of omega-3 that create the anti-inflammatory action in the body. So plant-based sources of omega-3s may not provide us as much benefit of EPA and DHA, which is the active form, as fish or animal sources. So vegetarians and vegans, you might want to consider supplementing with some kind of DHA or EPA, like a fish oil or something like that, so that you can get your omega-3s into your body, because it can be really hard to get them from plants. So the other thing we want to look at when we are sourcing fat is we want to just look how nutrient dense is it? How far away from its natural form is it? We want to look for things like cold pressed, organic, raw, virgin, single origin. So when we look on the back, is it just from Spain or is it just from the US? It's better to have a single origin. We love dark bottles, and we always choose glass over plastic. Oils are a great extraction, so we use them in herbal medicine, right? They help pull things out, and we'll hold them. Like in plants, they pull out certain constituents to make them medicinal, but we can also see this happen with, if oil is sitting in plastic, it can pull out that BPA and pull out the plastic into the oil. So we want to always choose glass over plastic. And then for nuts and seeds, we want to just see if we can buy them in cooler temps. So some places keep them in the fridge. This is really important to keep them fresh and stable because, as you now know, omega-6s are sensitive to heat and light. So we love to buy them in the fridge or the freezer. Some other fats that are really great to consume are cacao butter and coconut meat and shredded coconut, or nut butters and olives, avocados, wild salmon, mackerel. We want to think about where our stuff is coming from. Like if we're doing yogurt, is it from biodynamic and grass-fed animals? It's going to affect the quality. We can do tahini or grass-fed pasture-raised meat, or wild salmon and mackerel, sardines, anchovies. We always want to be looking at the quality when we're talking about our food, and especially when it comes to fats. Especially, we have such a fat phobia, but fats are really important. And the easiest way to think about how much to consume is go gentle, because increasing fats quickly can cause a lot of stress on the digestive system. But think about just having a little bit with each meal. So, using some olive oil or adding in some avocados or olives. You don't need to overdo fat. People seem to do one or the other. They either slam on the fat or they go totally low fat. Just do enough to make your food taste good. And this should do the trick. And if you want more specifics, it kind of depends on how well your liver and gallbladder are working. It kind of depends how much you're already eating. So I can't actually give you the very specifics. But the best way to do it is just cook with enough fat to cover your meal in food and make it taste good. And then you can always add in a little bit of toppings like olives or avocados or some nuts and seeds to your salad. Okay, now let's dive into the fun topic of protein, which is just going wild. It's like a wildfire on social media. Everyone's talking about protein and how you need so much protein and it's going to save your life and all this stuff. And I kind of agree. And also I feel like it's getting a bit crazy, and there is always a sweet spot. And you can overdo protein, yes. And you can also underdo protein. And so I've seen both in my practice, and it's a thing. So it's, again, always figuring out what you are doing. And that's why I find it really helpful to track, even if it's just a day or two, to see how much you're actually consuming. So let's talk about what happens if you're not eating enough protein. It can be either weight gain or weight loss. Like you can't build muscle or you can't lose weight. All sorts of mental stuff, anxiety, moodiness, anything that you feel kind of unstable mentally. Brittle nails, cold hands, hair loss, digestive issues, hormonal issues, fatigue, low confidence, brain fog, inability to gain muscle, like I said, poor immunity. Literally, our antibodies have proteins in them. They need proteins for their structure. Slow recovery and slow healing time. Basically, there's so many side effects to not eating enough protein, because they are literally the building blocks of our entire body, of our nerves, of our tissues, muscles, antibodies, enzymes, hormones, neurotransmitters, everything. It's basically the structure of a house. That's protein. We are literally protein. It impacts how we feel big time. I find that when my clients introduce protein, they say, oh my God, I feel so much more grounded and calm and connected to myself. It helps us feel satiated, right? It helps us get from one meal to the next. It helps really curb cravings. So anyone who's dealing with a sugar addiction or sugar cravings, increasing your protein can help massively. It helps support, healthy weight, right? And weight loss. And it accelerates healing and recovery from injuries or accidents. And the thing about protein is animal proteins are way more bioavailable and contain all the essential amino acids in comparison to plant foods. So if you know me, or if you've been around the block with me for a little while, or if you've worked with me, you know that I'm very much into eating meat. I have found it helps so many people feel better. I understand if there's vegans and vegetarians out there that have their ethical reasons, that's fine. But I actually think that animals are really important for the ecosystem. And I've worked in a lot of gardening and regenerative agriculture systems where animals are a huge part of making healthy soil and a healthy ecosystem. So around here at Gut Health Jack, we are all about integrating healthy animal systems and integrating meat into our diet. And so when we're talking about protein, we're talking about quality again, because that's always what is the thing with when we're moving to a nutrient-dense diet, we're talking quality. So this is wild caught seafood, this is shellfish, this is wild game, right? Pasture raised eggs and chicken, pasture raised pork, grass fed animals like beef, bison, goats, lambs. And then we do have some plant foods that are higher in proteins than other, and they do have more of a balanced essential fatty acid or essential amino acid profile, like hemp seeds, buckwheat, quinoa, even tofu and tempeh, if you can tolerate soy. So the thing is here, conventional meat production is fucking gnarly. Like it pisses me off so much because it is so inhumane. These poor animals are shoved into these tight, confined fucking, I'm like looking at a picture right now of these poor cows eating grains that are high in omega-6s and probably sprayed with chemicals, and it just pisses me off. And then they inject them with antibiotics, and it's not a good thing. If you've ever driven past one, they reek and they smell, and they're rank. So they have a high pathogen load, right? Because if you put that many animals in a confined space, you're going to grow some gnarly infections. So they have to jab them with antibiotics, and they inject them with growth hormones to fatten them up. And there's tons of chemicals in there, right? On the feed and in their medications. So we've got chemicals in the external environment, and we also have chemicals going into the bodies of these animals. And in conventional meat production, it's also grain fed. And back to the omega-6 conversation, grains are high in omega-6s, and often these conventional crops are sprayed with chemicals and are high in omega-6s, and they're genetically modified. So that will transfer into the meat that you are eating. And I pulled up a study here just out of curiosity about omega-3 content in grass-fed beef and omega-6 content in grain-fed animals. And you can just see it right here on a chart where the omega-6 content is higher in the grain-fed animals and the omega-3 content is higher in grass-fed meat. So what the animals are eating transfers into the meat, and then that actually transfers into our diet. So always important to look for grass-fed protein or pasture-raised or wild, because it's going to have a better nutrient profile. And then there's always a question about how much protein. So it will always vary for each person, each individual, because it depends how sick they are, how much healing they need, right? How do you feel? How active are you? What are your goals? You can aim for basically a gram per body weight of desired body weight. So for me, if I'm 135, I want to eat around 135 grams of protein. I like to stick to like 100 to 120 grams of protein, especially for people who are working on their digestion. Sometimes we actually have to pull it back a little bit because eating a lot of protein can be really hard on the liver, especially if we are depleting certain detoxifying nutrients like thiamine. And so if you are someone who's struggling with gut health stuff, you want to just be a little bit cautious about bombarding yourself with too much protein. Just go slow and bring in digestive support. I have a whole guide on how to bring in digestive support supplements that I will link up in the show notes, where it basically shows you how to support your stomach acid as you are training your body to digest protein better. But for now, just stick to around 100 grams of protein a day, and that will be a really safe place to start. And before we move on to carbohydrates, I want to just circle back to animals' role in the ecosystem. I'm really passionate about not just what we're eating, but it's really, really amazing. When you change your diet, you're not only changing the health of your system and this organism of your human body, you have this ripple effect out into the whole world. The choices that you make with your food literally impacts our planet. And I just think that is so beautiful and such a cool way to support this beautiful ecosystem that we live on. And the thing is, historically, we had massive amount of grasslands, and these grasslands had ruminant animals grazing, right? And this feeds the soil, it sinks carbon, it supports humidity, it creates pockets for seeds to nestle in, right? Like hoof prints create little pockets where seeds can get stuck, and then they get watered, and then they actually grow roots and grow. And bare soil versus soil with roots, that is a massive thing. And there's a movie that I'll link up. I think it's called Kiss the Ground. And there's another one, Biggest Little Farm. Those two movies are really great if you are struggling to see the bigger picture of how important animals are for the environment. Because this bare soil versus soil with roots, it supports flooding and stripping of the landscape. So regenerative agriculture with animals, it supports animals and perennial plants, right? This supports the microbiome of the soil rather than depleting it. So I'm a really, really big proponent of supporting regenerative agriculture where and when we can, because the ripple effect is so positive. Like if we've got these healthy farms, we can then eat the meat and the plants that come off of that. And then also if we choose to support these farms, they can have the support they need to grow. So big fan of integrating animals into our ecosystem and supporting this, the grasslands to have ruminant animals, which is grass-fed meat. So yeah, regenerative agriculture all the way. Love it. And yeah, I'm all about working on that soil, not only our soil of our, mini gardens, but also the soil of the planet. And we can do that through the food choices that we make. Okay, let's switch gears to carbohydrates. Everyone's like, oh my God, carbohydrates. They're so scared of them. It's like, let's go keto, but maybe carnivore. But it's a basic macronutrient. We literally need to have carbohydrates in our diet to function optimally. So we need them for quick fuel source. So if you're going to go surfing and you want to catch that wave and you need a little power, you need quick fuel source, carbohydrates. Same thing if you are doing anything that's fast twitch or like, boom, you need the energy to move and you need that quick fuel source, think carbohydrates. Carbohydrates contain fiber, right? That supports our gut microbiome and detox. So we're going to talk about that next. It helps us fight infections. Carbohydrates literally help build out our immune system. They support healthy blood sugar levels. And in combination with fats and protein, they help us rebuild tissue. So we're talking about starchy root veggies. We're talking about beets and potatoes and squash and parsnips, fruits. We're talking about gluten-free grains like quinoa and buckwheat and amaranth, or legumes and beans. Even grass-fed dairy has some carbohydrates in there. And then we've got things like honey or maple syrup. So a big mistake that I see when people are talking about carbohydrates is they're eating refined carbs and sugars that are lacking nutrients and they are lacking fiber. So these refined carbs, which are basically, if you flip over a packet, they are often carbohydrates that have been refined and stripped of their nutrients, and they're just basically like a starch. It's like rice flour, wheat flour, and this spikes blood sugar levels. They feed pathogens in the gut, and often they are packed in combination in packaged food with additives and chemicals and those inflammatory oils and preservatives and food coloring. Just flip over a packet next time you buy, let's say, crackers or something, and just read what's in there. If it says like wheat flour and rice flour and potato flour with 0 grams of fiber, this is what I'm talking about. So we can, instead of eating those refined carbs, we can just swap them out for whole food carbohydrates like almond, coconut, cassava flour that's just been ground and it still has the fiber and nutrients in it, pumpkin, squash, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, yams, white potatoes, all the different starchy veggies like parsnips and carrots, and then there's the gluten-free grains and beans and legumes. And these whole food carbohydrates, they contain tons of minerals. And minerals, for example, are really important for digestion, especially things like sodium and magnesium and potassium. And these root veggies specifically are really high in potassium, which is really helpful for motility of the gut and constipation. So if we pull out carbs, we can be pulling out certain nutrients and minerals that are really helpful for our digestive function. And minerals, for example, they are the thing that sparks the chemical reactions in our body. So if we pull those out, we're going to have a lot of issues with basic foundational health. And also something that really is kind of glossed over is our brain's preferred food source is carbohydrates. So is glucose. So if we pull out the carbohydrates, we can actually have a hard time thinking straight. And it really helps to stabilize our mood and sleep and energy. And low carb diets can trigger things like irritability and anxiety and sleep issues for some people. And I actually see with people who struggle with sleep issues, one of the best things to do is make sure you have carbohydrates at dinner, because this can actually help promote relaxation and sleep. So I have a little clinical pearl for you. People who are burnt out, women who are burnt out, who are menstruating females, and this is a big mistake, that they cut out their carbs and they are overtraining and undereating, and then all of a sudden they start feeling like shit and their hormones tank and their gut is a mess. And this is often happens too. Like, even if I'm recommending someone to swap to a healthy diet and I'm kind of guiding them through it and we're working together one-on-one, often we'll pull out all the carbs as far as like the garbage goes, right? The carbs that are garbage. And we'll start bringing in sweet potatoes and fruits and stuff like that. But often it will be such a dramatic shift where they actually go really low carb on accident. And so that's just something I'm seeing over and over in practice, where just like check yourself if you've done like a paleo diet or a Whole30 diet or, even keto or whatever. If we go too low carb for too long, this has a really, really big impact on our gut, because you're cutting out the fiber, which is the food for our gut microbiome. And also you need healthy carbohydrates for fuel. And if you are doing CrossFit or surfing or skiing or biking and you've gone low carb, this is a super stress on the body, because exercise is a stressor and you don't have the fuel you need to mount for that stressor. And then your body breaks down its own tissues to fuel up energy for the threat at hand. So I just see it happen so much in my practice, where we're going healthy. We switch to a diet that is, more whole food, which is awesome. That's what we want. But we just want to make sure that we're still eating the carbohydrates, because if we don't, it can really start to affect our blood sugar, which affects our everything, right? It affects our nervous system and it puts a stress on the body. Before moving on from carbohydrates, I just want to do a little detour on fiber and polyphenols. So fiber is super important, right? Because it is food for our microbes, which supports our microbiome. Without it, they starve. We need fiber to feed the beneficial species in our gut. And when our gut microbiome eats and digests our fiber that we cannot, it produces metabolites like short chain fatty acids that don't only just have local anti-inflammatory and supportive gut healing effects. They also, when in abundance, we actually can have systemic, beautiful anti-inflammatory, metabolic, and overall health support from the metabolites that are produced from these microbes eating fiber. So we have soluble fiber, we've got insoluble fiber, we have resistant starch, and we have polyphenols. These are the key ingredients for a healthy microbiome. And the thing about a healthy microbiome is we want diversity. That's what kind of dictates a healthy microbiome. And so how we do that is we have plant fibers in rotation. All the different colors, we want about 40 plus species a week, right? So a green apple and a red apple, those are 2. So it actually can add up quite quickly. So I challenge you today to choose a food that you haven't had in a while, or choose an alternative. If you've had a lemon, have a lime. If you've had a green apple, have a red apple. If you've had a red quinoa, do a white quinoa. Just switch it up. And the diversity of all these different plant foods, they're going to feed the diversity in our gut. And then we have resistant starch. So it's like cooked and cooled potatoes. So you can think potato salad. You could do rice. So you cook the rice and then cool the rice. This resistant starch is really helpful to feed certain key butyrate producing bacteria. And the thing here is you can't actually reheat the food. You want to eat it cold to get the benefit. And then we have polyphenols, which actually aren't a fiber. They are the color in certain foods. So you can get them from things like coffee, or any pigment in the food is going to be rich in polyphenols, which has a really strong antioxidant effect, which it can help with inflammation and detoxification and overall health. So we're going to do a whole episode on the microbiome specifically, but I had to put the little plug in here about fiber is super important when we're talking about a nutrient-dense diet, because it feeds our microbiome, and it also helps our metabolism and helps us stabilize our blood sugar and help our detoxification. And if you're like, oh my God, when I eat fiber, I just bloat up and I feel pregnant, I'm so bloated, this is an indication that something might be going on potentially in your small intestine. Anytime we're reintroducing fibers, we want to go low and slow. But if you feel like every time you eat fiber, you bloat, then we might want to do some deeper investigative work where we start to see if there's an imbalance of beneficial and pathogenic bacteria. Now that we have covered fats and proteins and carbs, our macronutrients, let's dive into the micronutrients and zoom in on the smaller pieces. And these are like the spark plugs or the little skilled workers working behind the scenes. They are the deep minerals in the soil that feed the inner terrain and make everything kind of happen, right? They are the drivers of all the biochemical processes and the enzymatic reactions that happen in the body. Without them, your body can't run its core fundamental processes, right? Digestion slows, hormones misfire, gut lining weakens, energy drops, and the tricky thing is you can't always feel a deficiency right away, and that's why people are just guessing on their supplements. But that is why I focus so heavily on doing hair tissue mineral analysis testing. It gives us a real window into your mineral status, so we can actually see what's depleted and what's in excess, because it's not always more is better here. Sometimes actually high amounts of, let's say, copper or iron can actually be really hard on the body, hard on the liver, and cause all sorts of crazy symptoms, especially like in the brain. If we've got too much copper, we can see things like liver issues and OCD and PMDD and PTSD and postpartum depression and anxiety and panic attacks, PMS, all from having this unbound excess copper. So fine-tuning your mineral status and your nutrient status, it really is, it can be kind of nuanced, but the thing is, if you just focus on supporting yourself with the quality of the food you're eating, you will naturally increase your macronutrients, and you will also naturally balance your nutrient profile, your micronutrient profile, because the cool thing about nature is if you eat foods in their whole form, they have all the nutrients together that work together, because nutrients have synergistic and antagonistic sort of brothers and sisters, and nature has what they need together. They're bound up together as like a team. And so a few things we can do is, look to how our food is farmed, right? Conventional farming practices are decreasing the amount of micronutrients in our food, where in contrast, regenerative farming and the diversity farming methods increase our nutrient value, right? Using traditional methods like soaking and sprouting and fermenting, this actually makes nutrients more bioavailable. And we can shop local and shop at farmers markets, because smaller farms often have more rich and diverse and healthy soils, which create and grow healthier, nutrient-rich produce. So we can also just consume nutrient-rich foods foods are in color. Herbs are a great one, herbs and spices. Organ meats, we've got broths and stocks, soups and stews. And we need all of these things, right? Like vitamin C, healthy for the immune system. Zinc, healthy for reproduction and skin health and digestive health. We need magnesium to relax the muscles. But we don't want to supplement these in isolation, because like I said before, it's like the inner workings of a clock. You turn one gear and another gear turns. So it's always best to get your food or your nutrients in whole food form, so that you're not overdoing or underdoing anything. So as you can see, there's so many nuances. There's so many little bits and pieces that we could tuck into. But for now, I just want to give you this higher, further back perspective, so that we can take it one step at a time, one bite-sized piece at a time, so that it's achievable and doable without getting overwhelmed. And I was going to dive into water and hydration today, but that is going to be another topic. We're at minute 43, and yeah, time to switch gears and just help you wrap this up today. So what I would say, and to put this in summary, is an oil change, right? There's for each macronutrient, we can do specific steps. Oil change, right? So swap to healthy oils and fats. Read the labels on your packaged foods. See if there's polyunsaturated fatty acids in there. Diversify your fats. So choose, bring in some, we didn't talk about saturated and polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fatty acids, but bring in a diversity of foods. Bring you could do grass-fed butter, you could do olive oil, you could do coconut oil, you could do some, fish oils. You could bring in wild-caught salmon. Diversify to help all those different functions that fat has in the body. We need a variety of different fats. And choose full fat over fat-free. Protein, we talk about where are your animals eating? How much protein are you eating? So check in on that. Are you eating enough protein? Aim for about 1 gram per body weight, or just shoot for about 100 grams a day. And can you include, if you aren't eating much animal proteins, is there any way you could bring in some form of animal protein? Whether it's a bone broth, like grass-fed bone broth, or maybe some grass-fed dairy or pasture-raised egg. Is there any way you could invite that into your system, knowing that your body needs that for its fundamental building blocks? Then we have the carb swap. Choose whole food carbs over refined carbs, right? And then choose some rooty veggies for your gut and diversify your species. So how many species are you eating in a week? Aim for 40 plus. And for your micronutrients, all of these steps above will improve this status. They will improve your mineral status and your vitamin status, but also things like seaweeds and nettles and raspberry leaf and nutritive cold infusion teas. You can do colorful foods and sea moss and herbs and spices. Herbs and spices are kind of like one of the super overlooked things that can really increase the nutrient density of your food. So just sprinkle some coriander on your chicken or add parsley and thyme and oregano. That's a really good way to increase your nutrient density. So that wraps us up for what a nutrient-dense diet is. And of course, there's so many layers underneath that, but that is the bigger framework. That is when we zoom out what we need to be looking at. So next time you go shopping, I hope you have more clarity and more understanding of what to look for. And if you are ready to reset your gut and reset your diet and rewire your mind and reclaim your energy, the grounded method in my Mind Gut Reset is for you. If you want to feel clear and calm and energized, I have an 8-step framework that can help you get there. And I'm happy to bring you into that group and have you walk this path together, because your body knows how to heal. You just need the right steps and the right framework. This is your full body reset to heal your gut, clear your mind, and just get the foundations of like, how do I actually reset? And so if you're craving more focus and direction, I would love to have you in this next round, which is actually my first round of doing it this way. I'm really excited for this new style of doing a group program. So join the waitlist and we will let you know when doors open. Okay, thanks for being here today. I hope this helps you and brings you some clarity and direction, and I will catch you in a couple weeks' time. If this episode lit something up within you, join me again in 2 weeks' time. Gut health doesn't have to be overwhelming. We'll unravel it here together, one episode at a time. Sign up for my newsletter with this link below to be the first to know when the next episode drops. And if someone came to mind while listening today, copy the link and share this episode if you think it could help them. Thanks for tuning in and listening to the Gut Health Jack podcast. Now get outside, have some fun, and I'll see you for the next episode.